Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today, we're thinking about A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens with my Stave 5 knowledge quiz. There is a link to an optional worksheet in the description that you can use to make your own notes for revision, or if you're a teacher, you can use that resource with your students. But you don't have to. You could just play along for fun if you want as well. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of things on the channel to help you understand A Christmas Carol like an expert. Okay, let's get going with my Stave 5 quiz. Question number 1. Which is the correct quote that describes the day at the beginning of Stave 5? Is it A, dry, gleaming, bright? Or is it B, heavenly skies, sweet fresh air, merry bells? Question number 2. What does Scrooge send to Bob Cratchit's house? Is it A, a greatcoat? Is it B, a goose? Is it C, a turkey? Or is it D, a coal scuttle? Question number 3 now. What does Scrooge say he will love as long as he lives? Is it A, Tiny Tim? Is it B, Jacob Marley? Or is it C, his door knocker? Question number 4. What does Scrooge ask the charity collectors to do? Is it A, take money that he hands them? Is it B, does he say that he wants them to come and see him? Or is it C, come to him first next year for double from him? Question number 5. After speaking to the charity collectors, where does Scrooge go? Does he go A, to church? Does he go B, to speak to beggars? Or does he go C, to Fred's house? Question number 6. How many words does Fred speak in Stave 5? Is it A, 6? Is it B, 18? Is it C, 32? Or is it D, 48? Question number 7. How late for work the next day is Bob Cratchit? Is he A, 15 minutes late? Is he B, 18 and a half minutes? Or is he C, 21 and a half minutes late? Question number 8. What does Scrooge say Bob's family are? Is it A, struggling? Or is it B, remarkable? Question number 9. Scrooge sends Bob out to get something. What is it that he sends him on his way to get? Is it A, a greatcoat? Is it B, something for them to drink? Is it C, money? Or is it D, a coal scuttle? And finally, question number 10. Which character's words did Dickens choose to end on? Is it A, Bob Cratchit? Is it B, Tiny Tim? Is it C, Jacob Marley? Or is it D, Scrooge? Okay, we've had our questions. You should have made a note of your answers. Now what we're going to do is review those answers and think a little bit further about those key moments and quotes from Stave 5. Okay, which is the correct quote that describes the day in Stave 5? The answer is heavenly skies, sweet fresh air, merry bells. The weather has changed, so light has conquered darkness in Stave 5. It was a very different day in Stave 1. Dry, gleaming bright is the description of Fred's room from Stave 3 when we find ourselves at Fred's house celebrating Christmas. And that again is a reference to light. We've got light versus darkness throughout this novel. And at the end, we've got a nice bright day. So it's B that is the correct quote. Number 2, what does Scrooge send to Bob Cratchit's house? Well, you'll remember a greatcoat from Stave 1. Bob Cratchit doesn't have one. He boasted no greatcoat, so he leaves and heads off into the cold to return home to his family without a greatcoat. He's just got his comforter, a long scarf to keep him warm. A goose is what the Cratchits ate when we saw them enjoy their Christmas together, a very pitiful small one. It's the prize turkey in the window that Scrooge sends a young boy off to go and buy. And a coal scuttle is something that Scrooge will later send Bob Cratchit to buy at the end of the novel. It's quite interesting that the people that Scrooge speaks to in Stave 5 put right the negative attitudes that he has towards others that we see in Stave 1. So he speaks to a child here and sends him off to go and buy the turkey for Bob Cratchit, and that's putting right the way he spoke to a child in Stave 1. Question number 3. What does Scrooge say he will love as long as he lives? Well, he does love Tiny Tim as long as he lives. We hear that in the end of the novel. He certainly loves the message that Jacob Marley has provided to him, that new opportunity and that chance to live a different life. It's actually his door knocker that he talks about. He says that he will love that as long as he lives. Question number 4. What does Scrooge ask the charity collectors to do? Well, he wants to give them many back payments and he says that they should come and see him. So it's B that is the correct answer. Question number 5. after speaking to charity collectors, where does Scrooge go? Now, you would be forgiven for saying C to Fred's house, because that is where he heads to eventually, and he spends Christmas there. We don't have much of a mention of that because we've already shared in that moment in Stave 3. So Dickens gets to recycle all those ideas and all those moments because we've already experienced them in that visit. Scrooge actually, in a very short paragraph, goes to a church and then ends up speaking to beggars in the street before he finds himself nervously outside of Fred's house before he knocks at the door. Question number 6. How many words does Fred speak in Stave 5? He says very little. In fact, he says, "Why, bless my soul, who's that?" That is all that Fred has to say in Stave 5. So he doesn't have much of a speaking role towards the end of the novel. And the thing that's interesting here is if you're somebody who needs to write an essay, so if you're an exam candidate and you need to write about Fred, he doesn't say too much. So thinking about those poignant things that he says in Stave 1 and when we see him in Stave 3 is really important. If you're going to need to write about Fred at length, you're going to need to think about what he symbolises, and you're going to need to use him to compare him to Scrooge. Question number 7. How late for work the next day is Bob Cratchit? He's 18.5 minutes late. And Scrooge, of course, pretends that he's about to sack Bob Cratchit, which would be disastrous for him and his family. And he pretends to be the man he was before letting Bob Cratchit know that he's going to raise his salary. Question number 8. What does Scrooge say Bob's family are? Well, remarkable is what he calls the boy that he speaks to, that he sends on his way to go and buy the turkey that is for the Cratchit family. He says that he wants to assist Bob Cratchit's struggling family. Question number 9. What does Scrooge send Bob Cratchit out to get? Well, Scrooge is going to raise his salary, so hopefully Bob Cratchit will be able to afford a great coat. They're both going to sit down and have a drink of something called Smoking Bishop, which is a sort of Christmassy drink. So they're going to have a drink together. He's going to give him more money, but it's a coal scuttle that he sends him out to buy. And again, all of those things from Stave 1 that are negative associations with Scrooge are being resolved here. So we've got that resolution at the end of the novel. All of those things that Scrooge just got wrong in Stave 1 he's putting right here. So that cold counting house that we saw Bob Cratchit in at the beginning of the novel is now going to be a warm one. He's sending him out to go and buy some coal so that Bob Cratchit will no longer be working in misery, and he won't be suffering when he's at work for Scrooge. Question number 10. Which character's words does Dickens choose to end on? Well, he chooses to end on the words of Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim has said, "God bless us, everyone." And it's those words that are the very ending of the novel. And the thing that's really interesting here, the idea that he's chosen Tiny Tim's words to end on really does go to show that Charles Dickens wanted his readers to think really carefully about their attitudes, not only to the poor, but to children as well. Children in poverty in society are reoccurrent in the work of Dickens. So he's written lots of novels where children and their suffering are at the forefront of his thinking as a writer. He definitely wanted his Victorian readers to reflect on their attitudes towards the poor, but children as well. So choosing to end on the words of Tiny Tim is meant to be something that just makes the readers reflect on their attitudes, but also the vulnerability of children in society. You'll be forgiven if you said Bob Cratchit. Bob Cratchit in the film adaptations often plays the role of the narrator at the end. Now, the actual storytelling voice in A Christmas Carol is the voice of Charles Dickens. It's his words that we're hearing, and the narrative voice is the voice of Charles Dickens. So he's the storyteller. But when you see a film version of it, it's ordinarily right at the end, you might see Bob Cratchit that delivers those final lines from the novel to the audience and sort of breaks the fourth wall and speaks to us. But it's important to remember that it's the words of Charles Dickens, and he echoes the voice of his character, Tiny Tim, at the end of the novel. So that's how the novel ends. God bless us, everyone. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. There are plenty of things there to help you with A Christmas Carol. Lots of different summaries, guides to characters and key quotes to help you understand the novel like an expert. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.